Greetings and salutations, test takers. This is the Series 7 Guru coming to you on St. Paddy's Day, a special St. Patrick's edition. Brian's got on his green Cubavera, it looks like.
Yeah.
You can see the Series Guru is always green. Not easy being green. One of my favorite Kermit. You know who wrote that song, Not Easy Being Green?
No.
The Eagles.
Really?
It's an Eagles song. So who would have thunk it? Anyways, happy St. Paddy's Day. On the other side of the screen, we got our always very special guest, the Test Geek in flesh form, Brian Lee, managing member, Test Geek Exam Prep LLC. We'll take care of some housekeeping, and then we'll see how we can help you with any content questions you may have. If you are going to ask us a question, well, before that, tell us where you're joining us from and what exam you're taking. We can start there. If you do have a question for Brian and I, please just put it in the format of S7 or SIE, capital Q. That makes it easier for Brian and I to pick it out of the chat, know what you're doing. It's not necessary, but it's helpful. I mean, you know, a lot of the exams have overlap, but the depth at what they test thing or lack of depth is different. So if you're looking for a free supplement to your paid study materials, there is nothing better than my YouTube channel. I've organized that channel by series playlists. So, you know, if you're taking the 66, for example, or 65, you'd start with our podcast episode, our playlist Brian and I did for those exams, which gives you a nice view of the terrain, kind of like cover to cover what it looks like. I had somebody again today, they didn't read the book. I said, well, if you're not going to read the book, at least watch that podcast so you get an idea of what all you're held accountable for. Then we have a playlist for lectures, a playlist for practice test, tutoring replays. So find your playlist for your series exam. Now, there's 2,500 plus videos on the channel. And if you're looking for a particular topic, please use the channel search bar. If you want to binge, use the playlist, particular topic. This comes up, Brian, how often? Somebody today in social media said, ChatGPT says the X date is 1 business day prior to the record. I said, well, ChatGPT hallucinates and was trained on old settlement dates. Like, I don't know what I'm talking about. Then somebody piped up, Brian, and said, well, you know, I'm watching a video from 5 years ago when you too said that. I said, well, you haven't checked out the 5 update videos that are available to you that tell you about how to do that, practice questions. So if you put, for example, X date, literally 15 videos will show up. One's with updates, one where I walk you through how to do it, that kind of thing. So use that search bar. Brian and I know tonight we're not a problem with that, but we know we're going to get asked and we're going to answer the same question that we've been asked and answered, I don't know, over the years, probably dozens of times. It's okay. But if you use that channel search bar, you could, you know, watch the video. If you're looking for a paid supplement, the Guru 15 discount code is for Kaplan. And if you don't have a Kaplan QBank, I highly recommend that as a paid supplement. Listen, there are people who are making breakpoint sales, Brian, with the Kaplan discount code. If somebody offers you, for example, the LPL discount code, you're not an LPL employee, it's still not as good as mine. It too is 15%, but it doesn't come with my office hours. I charge $425 an hour for tutoring. And if you show up at the office hour, if you use that Guru 15 and you're the only one there, then you get a free hour of tutoring. Usually there's 5, there's 6, you know, people there. But please, you know, consider whether you're getting a better discount on Kaplan than you're going to get with my discount code. I don't believe so. So make sure you check that out. If you're looking for somebody to do distillation for you, what I mean by distillation is, oh my goodness, the Kaplan book is like 600 pages or something. I highly recommend Brian's supplement. He has a nice bridge. Once you get your studies done, you're 7 to 10 days out, maybe watch his videos, check out his class notes, and most importantly, I think, check out his Test Geek practice test for these exams. They're pretty good. Guru 20 gets that to you all in for about $100. I think a little over $100. So make sure. And thank you, Brian, for making that very generous offer to our viewers. So check that out. Listen, you're not alone if you're taking these tests. We have several communities for you. One of our communities is our Facebook community, coming up on 4,000 active members. Wow. That's called baby brokers doing hat tricks. Baby broker is a term of endearment for rookies in the securities industry. A hat trick is 3 successes in a limited time frame. Think SIE 766, SIE 663. You get the idea. We also have subreddit communities. We have a subreddit for the Series 6. We have a subreddit for the SIE and Series 7, R Series 7. We have a subreddit for NASA exams, R Series 66. That's 63, 65, 66. And we have a subreddit for 9s, 10s, and 24s, R Series 24. If tonight you win our coaching call drawing, you do not win tutoring at a date and time of your choice. That's not what you win. What you win is a coaching call, and you go to the class tab at deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. You'll see the coaching call tab, and you can register for that. And then I show up and I talk about whatever you want to talk about. We also have coming up, you can check that out at deantenneytutoring.setmore.com, my booking page. We have a jam session. That's free for anybody who wants to attend. We go around the horn asking any questions, and I have a whiteboard like Brian has behind him. But, we can answer more in-depth questions than we can do in this live stream. We also have a book club, and that's coming up March 26th, 6 p.m. That's free. And the book we're reading this book club is Streetwise, Getting To and Through Goldman Sachs by Lloyd Blankfein. I think it's going to be a great read. It's about his transition from Goldman Sachs, a managing partner, to setting up Goldman Sachs as a C Corp. I'm sure it's going to have a lot of great stories in it, and feel free to join that. All those things can be accessed at deantenneytutoring.setmore.com, and that includes that free office hour that comes with use of the discount code. By the way, it doesn't matter if it's Guru 15 or Guru 20. If you buy Brian's content using the discount code, you're welcome to join me for that office hour. All right, we take care of all of our thing. Here we go. We're ready to answer questions. If you can help us out with that by telling us what your exam you're taking, followed by your question, Brian and I will do our best to try and answer that for you. All right, let's see what we got going on, Brian. Let me get rid of that banner. Oh, looks like it'll be a busy night. I passed Valeria. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I like that name. I passed the SIE. I passed the 6, 63, and 65. Woo! That is a lot of testing victories. And
wow.
What we do for victorious test takers is we have a toasting beverage. Tonight's toasting beverage, no surprise for testing victories, is Jameson, a nice Irish whiskey. I will pour that. And we have a victory cigar. Tonight's victory cigar is a My Father La Bijou cigar of the year, and I think 2022. Let me clip that. Brian, I just got a 288-liter humidor delivered, and everybody thought it was a refrigerator, and I said, no, it is a humidor. So I've upped my humidor game substantially. Unfortunately, I don't have anything on life insurance. I don't have any videos on that.
Yeah.
I hear the Insurance Queen is pretty good. Yeah. So check her out on YouTube. Is it an easy exam? Well, any securities person you ask is going to say easier than securities exams, but we're securities people. Yeah. So I would think it's going to be easier than your 65, I would think, but I'm not an insurance person. What do you think, Brian? I think easier, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah. From what
Brian he doesn't even
no, I've taken the insurance exams.
Oh, you have?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that.
It was about 15 years ago. Wow. They're significantly easier, I guess.
Okay. I would think more recognition. I would think more recognition, less practical application, less judgment. So
that's right. Yeah.
65, Gabriel. All right. 65. Who was it? Brian was telling me the same thing. Mark Esposito. I was talking to him today. And he said, too, that 65 is his number one thing in terms of tutoring and helping people.
Absolutely.
Both Brian and I take a little bit of a heat because we both think the 65 is one of the most challenging, if not most challenging, FINRA exam. And, people who are, taking 7s and stuff are incredulous about that. But, I think the 7 has a narrative sense to it or flow. Find a customer, open an account, make an investment. What happens after that? I mean, the test is random, but the knowledge has a narrative thread to it, where the 65 is kind of all over the place. And so when you get that testing victory, man, kudos, kudos, kudos. California. You know, we have some people in California in my class today, Brian, and I joke, well, I left California, but I heard they're going to a top marginal rate of like 13 point something. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. Hi, how are you? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Series 65 looks well. It looks like we got a 65 night tonight. Scoring 60s. Okay, well, pay attention here, Gabriel. It's more than likely you would pass with a 60, but you are at risk. We want to push you into a better margin of safety. And so I would want you to be in the mid 70s on those practice tests. We don't know when you're studying or when you're testing, but that's where you want you to be. You're struggling with formulas. Now, I don't think that the formulas are going to be a big deal on the 60s, but let's go over fundamental analysis. Working capital test question. They either are going to say what best describes working capital. You come up with current assets minus current liabilities. These are liquidity ratios, or liquidity, I should say. And here, you know, they might ask you the effect on working capital. You know, for example, what's the effect on working capital when a company declares a dividend? And you would say it decreases working capital. What's the effect on working capital when they pay the dividend? No effect, because they have less of an asset called cash, less of liability. Current ratio, what best describes it? Current assets minus current divided by current liabilities. Yeah, and they might actually make you do it. So, for example, if I'm looking at the balance sheet and the company has $40 million in assets and $10 million in current liabilities, 40 million current assets, the working capital is 30 million. The current ratio, 40 million divided by 10, 4 to 1. They have $4 in current assets for every dollar they owe. Expected return is usually used in the context of some kind of a question about beta is 1.5, market return is 10. What's the expected return? And we would say 15%. However, if you tell me you missed your mark on 65 because of formulas, I'm going to say I don't think so. You know, you got to know total return, current yield, but, you know, a handful of them. Brian looks like he's got his whiteboard going, so let me give him his whiteboard. And I think he's going to address how to get that 60 into the 70 range. Here you go, Brian.
That's exactly right. Dean, I wish I had a dime for everyone who's told me that the formulas are so overwhelming for the Series 65.
Yeah.
And I think we both know, because the textbooks include a lot of that, and they're pretty sophisticated formulas. You don't have to get that serious with math. You may use a calculator 3 to 5 times on the entire exam. It's not the biggest thing that you have to work with. Now, for remediating, and this is for every exam, it's not just the Series 65. I wish I had a dime for every time we've explained this one too, right, Dean? Okay, so when you've taken a practice final, right? You run the performance tracker. Most of them have them. Kaplan's is absolute the best. Although it is a little difficult navigating through it and getting to it for that specific exam. Anyway, the performance tracker will then break out your score into all the different units. And you can easily find 2 or 3 of the weakest units. You find those weak units. You then review the videos, either mine or Dean's or both, right, to kind of remediate on those areas. You may have missed something watching the video first time. Hey, he's got 2,500 videos. I probably have about 1,200 hours of videos. There's a lot of content in our stuff as well. So why not watch it a second, maybe a third time, right? So you watch the videos on those particular weak areas. Do a short quiz on those units. I like 10 to 15 questions. That way you don't get too far into the weeds with some of those practice questions, just to help remediate, right? Kind of get used to the language and the vocabulary. And then rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat. You should see your scores increasing on those practice finals over the time. Not from memorizing Kaplan or STC or past perfect questions, but because you know the content better. Rinse and repeat. This is remediation. And Dean often says, you got to spend as much time remediating as you do taking practice finals. And that's absolutely
right on. And by the way, what Brian just described to you, and people ask us all the time, we don't mind, because we know if we just say remediation, sometimes people go, well, what the hell is remediation? Well, there you go. You see it on Brian's whiteboard. That is what remediation is. So you don't want to, and this is the thing too, is if you just keep doing 60, 60, 60, 60, 60, that's not the point. That means you need to take a break to lay some more base. Laying base is part of remediation as well. I had somebody who I told him, I said, listen, take a day off. You got to refresh. You got to reset. All right. I just wanted to say thanks. I passed my 7 2 weeks ago. Woo! We ring the bell. Ask for whom the bell rings or tolls. It tolls for thee, victorious test taker. 66. Oh, woo! You take your SIE. Well, I wasn't expecting that. Well, that's okay. You got to circle back, right? I like that.
Got them done.
But by the way, I would just tell you, John, I don't know you well. And so if I'm talking out of school, I apologize. But you are unique. I mean, I would guess that you missed the SIE, not because you didn't know it. There's some story behind that, because that is a unique testing journey you've taken. Circling back. Because if you can pass the 7, you should certainly be able to pass the SIE. And so, okay, well, you're going to get that hat trick. You just have to circle back to get it, right? Take an exam in a month. Okay.
65.
On to the 24. All right. Wow. So we're going to have a general securities principle in the making, so to speak. I joke 24 babysitting 7s, right? So 24, you go, man, I wonder who's going to blow me up today. Or you're babysitting yourself. Maybe you're getting a 24, John, because you're going to be in charge of supervising yourself. That's always dangerous, because I would let myself do things I would never let a rep do. And almost always it blew up in my face as well. Hi, Dean. I've been studying for the 65 last 3 weeks. Planning on taking my exam on the last week of April. Any advice? So this is March, into March. This is 6 weeks out. So I'd be focused on laying base. We're trying to work our way, matriculate through the material, matriculate down the field into scoring position. I would be doing that by going sequentially, but you can do it if you want cherry pick. I would do unit 1. Brian and I have had this discussion many times with people. So 65, I do unit 1, whatever unit 1 is. I do the reading. I either watch a video before the reading to put a dent in the reading, or after I do the reading, I watch a video to consolidate the reading. Unit 1, then I go grab a quiz. I do 20, 25, 30 questions. I get a 75%. I do not. I move on to unit 2. Pay attention, Jeff. Once I get unit 2 done, I don't go to unit 3. We then bring up that caboose. We do a practice quiz on unit 1 and 2. Then we move on to unit 3. If you do that, I don't know, 4 weeks out, you'll have matriculated through the material, done those practice tests, and that will be setting you up to do 7 to 10 days out your first practice test, your first intellectual inventory. All right, so that's kind of where you're heading. You're heading towards getting through the reading, getting through the quizzes. As you keep adding performance opportunities, that's what I call practice questions, to those custom quizzes, that custom quiz, as you continue to work through the material, should be almost the size of the practice test. So there we go. That would be my recommendation. Yeah. I don't know about canceling. Well, March 19th, it's behind us. So what are we going to do? But I don't think best practice is to cancel your exam or reschedule. The best practice is to suck it up. Because I think when you reschedule, you're giving yourself an artificial sense of relief that you haven't really earned, to be honest, right? So I want you to be confident, Jeff. So if I have a student I'm working with and they need to reschedule because of confidence, I say, okay. But if you're just doing it because you're chicken, I'm not a favor of that. So it looks like you wanted to lay some more pace. Your thoughts, Brian, on rescheduling?
Absolutely. I like to separate the process into 3 pillars. This, of course, we've just described is the last pillar, the third pillar, right? Where you're then taking inventory and remediation. You sound like you're at the first and or second pillars, where Dean had just said lay a base, which generally requires getting through those wonderful textbooks, right? And he says, after unit 1, you take a little quiz, and again, that's 12 to 15 questions. And then you read unit 2, right, through 12 to 15 questions, and then another 12 to 15 questions on units 1 and 2, bringing up that caboose. And you just keep going all the way through. That's the slog. That's the hard part. Yeah. Dean also said you can watch the videos prior to, during, after each unit, or of course, then you can watch the entire videos where you compress all of this information to what is most important on the test. There's the first pillar, right? The slog, where you're laying foundation. Now we compress, we review, we illustrate, we explain to you what the test looks like and how it looks like. And then that third pillar where you're doing the practice finals and remediation. That, my friends, again, is suitable for all exams.
Right.
3 different stages.
And
right?
Brian, what Brian specializes is that middle part, right? He wants to help you kind of transition or make that bridge between that first part of your study and then going down there to do your practice.
That's our bridge.
Or do the real work. Brian Dean, passed my 66. Woo!
Yay!
Yeah, we are gratified when the live stream helps people, if not just for content. You know, Brian's into content, so every once in a while I say, "Oh, we had a lot of fun and fellowship," and you know, with Brian and I, are we really there for that?
I'm just a stick in the mud.
Yeah. But you know, he says, "Don't lose sight of our mission on Tuesday night. It's not really, Dean, about you lighting a cigar and smoking a whiskey or drinking a whiskey. It's about helping these test takers." Like, all right, Brian. Okay.
There you go.
I always warms my heart, Dallas, when I see somebody joining us from LinkedIn. Our preferred platform is YouTube, but we do broadcast to Facebook and we do broadcast to LinkedIn. So love it. I love that you joined us. So thank you so much. Hi, guys. I passed the SIE, the 6 and 63. Wow. Well, let's just give you kudos on that. 65 on Friday. Well, 65. Okay. You know, you're working your way up to the real dragon. You know, SIE, Series 6, 63 are, you know, they're dragons, but they're not as, they don't breathe as much fire as a 65 dragon breathes. Been using Past Perfect. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. No, I'm joking. Past Perfect, Dallas, I'm joking that they really get you in the weeds. They give you abundance, and that's certainly better than scarcity, but oh my God. I mean, you know, sometimes I can tell when somebody submits an explication request that it's Past Perfect. I go, oh my God. Anyway, 80 to 88. Well, that is fantastic, particularly on Past Perfect. So that's a good indicator. You've done Kaplan on the free ride on YouTube. So, well, thank you. People like that. I have Brian's exams there. I have Kaplan. 78, low 70. That's okay. Remember, because when you change vendors, you don't really want to memorize questions. And invariably, if you went from Kaplan to Past Perfect or Past Perfect to Kaplan, it doesn't matter. You're going to drop questions because you're adjusting to phraseology. But, I think it's fool's gold, Dallas, when people say, oh, I'm looking for the vendor that has the questions that are closest to the exam. And that's fool's gold because you need to be able to understand the concepts. So I'm not worried at all about that Kaplan score being the low 70, those Past Perfect scores. If I were betting, I would make the bet that you are going to make your mark on Friday. So last couple of days, I practiced, Dallas, the Hippocratic Oath, first do no harm. So because we said you're in a good spot, you just want to make sure that you avoid energy vampires, keep it light. You don't want to run out of fuel between now and Friday. So pace yourself. I had somebody today, I'm teaching a 3-day 66 class, and she had scores like yours, and she was asking what she should do. I said, well, you've earned the right to do whatever you think is going to be best for your psyche. If you feel like doing another couple practice tests is going to damage your psyche, then go ahead and do them. Not to learn, just to keep do that inventory, that mark. So I think you're in good shape. This is Tuesday. If I were your corporate trainer, Dallas, I'd say, well, what do you think? Should we do your full-time study? Or I'd say, let's do another one tomorrow. All right. And then let's put it up on Thursday, do something low key. So that would be what I would do. But first thing is you're great, so don't be stressed. It's, big thing is not to stress, right? And to get some rest. And it's kind of like an athletic event. You want to peak on Friday. You don't want to peak on Wednesday or Thursday, right? Oh man, that hurts. 65, both attempts. Wow. Well, sometimes, this happens with a coach, right? So, the Denver Nuggets, for example, the New York Knicks, I'm an NBA fan. Both of their coaches are great coaches, but You've heard this phrase, they lost the locker room. Nobody's listening to them anymore. And that happens with test prep vendors. So if this was, you would use Past Perfect, Nortman, or STC, I'd be saying the same thing. At this point, I think you need a different voice. And so I would recommend changing your vendor. As much as it hurts my heart, I just get offered, Martin, maybe based on this, I should accept the offer. Kaplan offered to me the opportunity to refresh their 9 and 10. And, I thought about it, Martin, but, they wanted, the proposal was 100 hours. And, do I feel like spending 100 hours rewriting a Series 9, 10 textbook? I certainly don't. And, I joke with Brian, in my older age, I'm getting lazier. It's like, I don't want to do it. But anyways, my recommendation would be change your vendor. And the vendor I would suggest is Notman Marks. They're a little more on the expensive side, but I think they add that value. Can't go wrong there. You can't go wrong with STC. So I would suggest STC or Notman. Your thoughts, Brian, on switching up vendors?
Absolutely. Yeah. I would also review the score sheets from the exams.
Oh, absolutely.
Try to spotlight some of the weak areas that you can go back and remediate.
Right on. So, tough. Yeah. I would be interested, Martin, with more information. Do you think you're struggling with the sales supervision part of it? Or do you think you're struggling with like the options? Maybe it's been like years since you had a 7. Do you have any idea? Are you almost passing everything? Brian's point, if we can isolate a little more some areas, maybe we can be more helpful in terms of identifying areas for remediation. Series 3, love it. I keep saying, Nima, I'm going to put up some 3 content. I used to love to teach the Series 3. I still love it, and I have content. I just haven't had an opportunity to get around to putting it up. So, oh well, I think STC is a fine vendor. High 60s, I think if you're confident in the execution of your study plan, confident in yourself, and confident in your answers on Friday morning, I think you're going to pass even with a high 60. I would prefer you're in there. High 60, 73, 80. There we go. Love it. So what should you do until Friday? Rinse and repeat. But again, I would make sure you're doing remediation. So we're not mindlessly taking practice exams. On the 80, we're going to go over the ones we missed and to say, okay, if I missed it, I know why I missed it. Not a problem. If I don't know why I missed it, well, then I got to remediate. I got to go back and circle back and find it. I love it. That's, I can't prove it, Nima, but I truly believe being confident and comfortable is worth 10 points. Just, I told Brian, we had this today. Who was it? Was it, I think it was Luke. And one of my rules, Nima, in my when I'm teaching classes is you're not allowed to put a question mark into the chat. It's got to be an exclamation point. I always tell them that, I'll know that your exclamation point is really, a question. And the reason I say that, Nima, is we do a study. I say, listen, for the next 3 days, let's see that everybody who doesn't follow what I just said, because nobody listens to me sometimes, they're going to put in a question mark about when I ask a question like, okay, how many days for this? If you think you know the answer, put in the chat. And they put that question mark. I would say like 19 or 20 times they're correct. And they got to trust themselves. So that's why I'm telling you, those people, I'm glad, Nima, this is not where you're at. That's what I'm telling you. You got to, go down in flames, so to speak. Put that exclamation point. Yeah, I know this stuff. I'm going to go kick some butt. All right. Woo! Excellent. Love it. Ooh. Happy St. Patty's. I had an Irish girlfriend, Brian. Her name was Mary. And she used to get so mad.
All Irish girls named Mary?
No, well, she used to get mad because people would say they're Irish too. And she would say, no, you are Irish American. I am 100% Irish. So, I haven't had a Jameson in a while. That's actually pretty good. In San Francisco, Jameson and Fernet are kind of the way you say hello and goodbye in bars. And it's usually, a shot, like a Guinness and a Jameson or something like that. Pass my SIE. Woo! Where is a good place to start?
Yes.
How about my playlist that says start here? So I think, I don't know, Ryan, I have like maybe 13 Series 7 playlists, but one of them is called Start Here. Now, I'm being a little facetious. However, Ryan and I are OGs. And so you're never going to find us telling you that the first step is to not read the book. Our first step, how do you start, is reading the book.
Text.
Now, Ryan, people get incredulous when I say the next part. As close to one setting as possible without taking any notes, just to see what's in the book, right? And I had a guy say, well, how long is that going to take? I said, well, read for an hour, see how many pages you read, then take the page count, divide, and that'll tell you how many hours of your study plan are going to be reading, right? So that would be my suggestion. It's a buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. People sometimes, Ryan, never get through reading the book because they're trying to rewrite the damn book. By the way, they're taking notes and they don't even know if it's important or not.
That's right.
Right? I had one guy who showed up in class, Ryan, his entire book was highlighted. I said, listen, you need to buy a different color highlighter and go do that again. Now, once I've read the book, then as Brian had on the whiteboard, I don't know when you joined us, that's now where we start reading the unit 1 again at depth, doing the practice questions, getting our 75% and matriculating through the material. So how do you start? You start by reading the book. Now, I have people, and Ryan, this blows my mind, they don't have a book. I'm like, you need a book, right? So that would be my first thing as a study vendor or test prep vendor is, do they have a book? Yeah, I'm an old school guy, by the way, so I would want a dead tree book, but, hey, they, get a PDF or whatever. Brian, you think reading the book is a good place to start?
I'm older than you are. Yes.
And you look better. That's disappointing, man. I'll tell you.
No,
That hurts me. It hurts me.
I read the Series 7 textbook. I can still remember this like it was yesterday.
Yeah, I got to read. I mean,
3 times. And didn't take notes until the third.
Yeah, I'm getting to the point where I'll accept one reading of the book. But when I'm trying to study something, the way I do it, Ryan, is I follow my own advice. I eat my own cooking. And when I have something to learn, the first thing I do is read the book in as close to one setting as possible. And almost always I'm going to read the book twice, because the second time I'm reading it, it's after I've laid some base. I kind of know what, I have a better idea of what's important, what's not. So I always, in my study plans and execution of a study plan on reading the book twice. Right? I told you, we're doing our book club meeting. Yeah, it's going to be streetwise. I told you I'm going to read that book twice. Once, I'm just going to read it cover to cover and as close to one setting as possible. But in terms of inquiry, when we're doing our book club meetings, we use what's called shared inquiry. And, as a leader, the next time I'm going to read, I'm going to look at some questions and page things we might want to look at and chat about, that kind of thing. I certainly wouldn't lead a book discussion having only read the book once, right? In the Great Books program out of the University of Chicago, which I am a certified moderator leader for, that's one of the rules. You can't participate if you haven't read the book. Took the SIC twice, failed. Last time, 69. Low in knowledge and capital markets. Low knowledge capital markets. Would you remember taking the 7? Well, we just had a guy, Stephanie, which is kind of interesting, that said he was circling back on the 7 after failing the SIE, if I understood him correctly, doing his 7 and his 66. I'm not opposed to this. Let me run this by you. I would think that if you move on in your 30-day wait period to try and master and pass the 7 and you're successful, I think it's a piece of cake to circle back and put that SIE in your bag, so to speak, because the depth of what you're going to have to do to pass the 7 will include everything that was on the SIE. The SIE, is pretty shallow, and the 7 is kind of the same stuff at depth. So I'm not opposed to it. I don't think it's the ideal kind of way to go, but if you feel up to it, I wouldn't be opposed. If I were a corporate trainer and you told me that's what you're going to try and do, I would be on board for that. Brian, your thoughts on this, whether to wait 30 days?
Exactly what I was thinking too. I come across this from time to time where they've attempted the SIE once, maybe twice, and then they move on to the Series 7. And again, there's a lot of mitigating factors that go into that, but it's not a bad idea. It's not the worst thing that you could do, So,
By the way, I would tell you too, Stephanie, if I were your corporate trainer, I would like that you're trying to move forward. I mean, that's a good way to respond, by the way. Whether you ultimately decide to do that or not, to even have that and talk about it means to me that you're going to be successful in terms of getting through this process. Right. So I like that. I would like somebody who comes in and says, "Hey, Dean, here's what I would like to do." I'm like, "Hey, I'm all for it." Right. Oh my goodness.
here we go. What were you saying?
Ashley, I don't know why. It's like a viral thing, Brian. Somebody uses Chat GPT. So first, Ashley, let me tell you what happened today on Baby Brokers doing hat tricks. We had one of our members at Baby Brokers doing hat tricks who used Chat GPT and gave him a question, and he answered the X date is the same as the record date, which is the correct answer. The X date is the first date on which the stock no longer trades with the dividend attached. Anyways, I said, well, the reason they gave you the wrong answer is because ChatGPT has been trained on old settlement dates. It has hallucinations. You can't rely upon it. Now, I don't know why you would want to rely on ChatGPT when you have Brian and Dean. You have the living form of intelligence, right? So don't really trust AI too much. Then what happened, Ashley, is one of our members said, I'm watching your video from 4 years ago, and you say, like ChatGPT, that the X date is 1 day prior to the record. I go, well, yes, because that was 4 years ago. And the content in the video, I think, is still okay. And then I copied to them one of, I don't know, a half a dozen videos where I go over the declared date, the X date, the record date, the payable date for both closed-end funds, open-end funds, and stocks. And you can use the channel search bar for that. Okay, so here's a brief overview, then I'll give Brian his board. Trade date is when we agree to terms, right? I think of it as kind of like real estate, right? Brian and I agree I'm going to buy his apartment building. We've agreed to terms. Then we enter an escrow period, typically 30 days. I deposit the cash. Brian deposits the title for that apartment building. And 30 days later is when ownership changes hands. Now, I don't get to go to Brian and say, hey, apartment buildings have gone down in value. I'd like to renegotiate. That's called reneging, trying to renegotiate after your terms. And Brian can't come to me and say apartment buildings have gone up. He'd like to renegotiate. No. Now, if under the Uniform Practice Code, which standardizes trading practices in the securities industry, if we had a 30-day escrow period, nobody would make good on trades. So the Uniform Practice Code, which standardizes trading in securities, says that settlement is T+1 between broker dealers, right? So if I buy a stock tomorrow during market hours, that's Wednesday, the trade will settle Thursday. Reg T is about credit extension. Reg T is set by the Federal Reserve Board. It's part of 34, and clients get 2 additional days. We don't tell them that because we don't want to use our money to settle their trade. So, Brian, I'll give you the board. Do you continue to get people who are confused about the settlement now being T+1?
Not a lot. Occasionally from time to time. Again, settlement, think about all the stocks that are trading hands every single day. Hundreds of millions of shares trade hands every day. The old guys in the house, Dean and I, we've been around the business for over 30 years before digital revolution came in, and people actually had to physically transfer ownership. They'd sign the back of their certificates. None of that stuff applies anymore. Now it's all digital. So if I go in, I call up my broker dealer and say, I want to buy 100 shares of Google. They place a trade. That's the trade date. Let's use Dean's dates. That's Wednesday, right? Well, I then officially become owner of that stock the very next day. Trade date plus 1 business day. That's it.
Yeah.
Settlement means transfer of ownership. It takes 1 day.
Well,
and Dean says you do technically have 2 more additional days to pay for it, but we don't tell anybody that.
By the way, this is why Robinhood nearly went bankrupt, because they were having to settle up their trades on T+1 to the selling broker dealers, and their customers had 2 additional days and were not paying. So there was about $1 billion difference there, right? The other side trade doesn't care that your customers haven't paid you yet.
Right.
Anyways, one more point I have to correct Brian. He is correct that we're old school guys, And we came
Correct.
into the business T+5, but I figured it out, Brian. I actually have 4 decades, right? Of not 3. Oh my God, 40 years.
I didn't want to say
Brian and I, between Brian and I, if we stick around another 10 years, we probably should, just to make the century mark. Right? And in those decades, what do you think, Brian? How many investors and test takers have we helped in our securities career? I would say tens of thousands. I don't think that'd be exaggerating.
I
I don't think that'd be exaggerating.
A lot.
All right. Well, we still told you this. Everybody has a different opinion. So here now, Stephanie, is Agnes telling you, or Agnes or Agni? I apologize. I'm going to call you Agnes. Agnes is saying, don't do it, Stephanie. Don't do it. If you can't pass the SIE, don't take the 7. It's the base for the 7. It was literally created for the 7. Well, that's true. That's true too. That's the challenge, right? That's the challenge.
It's absolutely true. It is the base.
Mad Marlowe, averaging 75 to 80 on longer practice quizzes for the Series 24, usually 50 to 70. Well, step it up and do complete practice tests. Exactly. Any advice for place to focus on 24? So I don't want to sound negative vibes, Mad Marlowe, but when somebody misses the 24, it's not often. If I'm teaching like a 20-person Series 24, I expect everybody to pass. But, usually if I lose somebody, maybe I miss 2. What they have in common is it's been a long, long, long time since they did a 7. And they've developed their niche in packaged products, mutual funds. And they get blown away on the banking and the trading. So to answer your question, I would focus on making sure you got trading and corporate finance banking under control, because that's where people usually miss the mark on the 24. So I'm not sure if you meet that profile, but I start 24 classes by saying, if you do, you now know you're at risk, and make sure you take action to do that. Brian, your thoughts on advice for where to focus on the 24?
That's exactly right. It's getting close to time. I don't know how many of the units you've gone through. Practice quizzes, practice quizzes, practices. Great, wonderful, excellent. I don't know how far back through the textbook you've gone, but I think it's time to take inventory. If you haven't already been through Dean's videos or my videos to compress that information. Oftentimes, and again, this is true for all the exams, is that there's so much content in the textbooks and the practice questions, you really need to kind of pull back so you can concentrate on that core content, because that's where you got to be really strong. So if you've been through the videos already, Dean's videos, he's got, how many playlists on the 24 you got?
I think I only have 1 for the 24.
1, okay. Go through those and then take inventory.
And Mad Marlowe, you have to check out. I'm not making this up. I promise this is a true story. I had a 24 who was really struggling with buy-ins and sellouts. And Brian on his YouTube channel does have some free content, and he has a 24 video on buy-ins and sellouts. And she told me, Dean, I was literally crying because Brian made it so simple. So please make sure, besides my videos, that you go check out Brian's free video on buy-ins and sellouts for the 24 as well.
That's right.
Greetings and salutations from Chicago. It's freezing cold. Well, I think we've made it. I don't want to jinx myself, but here off grid in northern Arizona, beautiful day today. I don't think I'm going to have to bring in any more wood or fire up the wood stove. But boy, I know when it's freezing in Chicago, it is really freezing. I'm taking the 6th soon. What are the most integral areas? I go back and study. Well, Brian and I both think that if you did well on your SIE, you can almost test out of a 6. Make sure you pay attention to the customer accounts, variable annuities, communications, and then double down on everything you learned about open-end mutual funds on your SIE. Brian, your thoughts on this one?
Absolutely. The first place to start is mutual funds and variable annuities. And then you and I also make sure that you know your types of accounts.
Oh, yeah. Joint tenants, customer accounts, I call it. Absolutely.
Yeah, customer accounts. Yeah.
Absolutely. Good question, Mad Marlowe. I think in my videos, I probably go a little overboard on math. So I'm surprised when people get a practical application on 24, but there's 2 formulas I would be aware of. The 2 formulas I'd be aware of, by the way, this is for 7 as well, at 10 as well. is market value at maintenance. So I would be able to determine a market value at maintenance, not what is maintenance, not 25. No, how far down the account could go. For example, if Brian put it on his board, thank you, Brian. If the market value is $20,000 and I take $20,000 and divide by 0.75, that would be 26,666, sign of the devil. Now, the reason, Matt Marlowe, that's important math is as a supervisor, I know that if this customer account, the market value, the collateral goes to 24, there's going to be a maintenance call due promptly. The other formula I would know, there's not a lot of math. I wouldn't be surprised if you told me you didn't have to do any math on the 24. Right. You know, I doubt you're going to have to calculate markup percentage or any of that stuff. But the other one is market value at maintenance for a short account, and that is credit divided by 1.3, right? So if I have $60,000 in cash in my short account, 40 grand from selling the borrowed stock, the 20 grand I put with it, if I divide the 60 by 1.3, I would find out market value maintenance, I think is, I'm not good at math, I think 46,153 something. Now, the reason that's helpful is I know that if it goes up past like 48, there's going to be a maintenance call, right? So those would be two formulas I would know. I would know those on the 7 as well, and I would know those.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
Any other formulas, I think, for the 24, Brian?
No, these are about the most common ones. Like you said, if you get any math at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I go overboard. I got all kinds of math on my 24 video. I probably should go back and edit. Just past the 66 yesterday. I'm not sure if it's an unpopular opinion. Was spot on. Well, there you go. Luis, I'm glad to hear that. And here's why. I have people tell me they're the same videos and they're not. They're different videos. So when people tell me that, I go, well, you obviously didn't watch that. So I haven't heard that. I mean, I don't know if it's a popular opinion or not. I get comments that both people have found them helpful. But what is funny, Luis, is when I started the YouTube channel, I was told that nobody would watch videos that are longer than 15 minutes. All of my competitors who now copy me, I got so many copycats. It's flattering how many copycats I have. But I then was hitting plug and play, and and people were watching my lectures. So my lectures can go on quite a bit. Hit pause, go get a coffee, and come back. But and then I thought, well, gee, if people like 60 minutes, let's try 90 minutes. So and now, Luis, I'm going back the other way. I got what I'm calling the dirty 30, which is 30 minutes on these exams. So, but your point, I wouldn't watch them all. I apologize if you did. I would pick one. No non-prep question. Shall I consider going into institutional sales? Well, I started as a retail broker and ended up as an institutional broker. And I did the different gigs, certainly. I mean, the institutional business part I didn't like about it, Ezra, is, oh my God, the sales cycle is so long, as compared to the sales cycle, in retail. So I don't know. I mean, I like both the retail side of our business and the institutional side of our business. I've taken all these exams with a financial advisor. It's so hard working on commissions. Well, yeah, that's kind of the nature of the beast, so to speak, right? Finding money, moving money, and placing money. And it's difficult because, Ezra, we don't get paid on all 2 of the 3 steps. We don't get paid to find the money. We don't get paid to move the money. We only get paid when we place the money. So it's challenging. So if you're finding that challenging and you're not able to generate enough commission and within the realm of doing the right thing for your customers, maybe consider being in the support unit somewhere. We have the business unit, the people in the front office, and we have other roles. But institutional sales would still be a sales gig. I'm not sure what you mean the side of things, but an institutional salesperson is the same process. The sales cycle is the sales cycle. But maybe you mean something other than like sales. Maybe you mean like be on the buy side, like working for the pension plan. Take the 10 on Friday. Any last minute tips? Stay calm, cool, and collected. Stay dedicated, disciplined, organized. Get a good night's rest. That 10 is a real slog. So really important that you are rested because, boy, that is a slog. I think the 10 is right up there with the 65, Brian, in terms of the sluggish nature of it. You have any thoughts about this? I'd like to have more data, Logan. I mean, what are your scores? I mean, if we had more data, I guess we could give you more tips, but
Take inventory,
Yeah.
remediate.
Yeah, make sure you're remediating. This is Tuesday. So basically, you got one tomorrow. You don't have any time Thursday. Thursday, you can't cram the night before. So Thursday's a low key day, and you got to get some rest. So for all intents and purposes, the execution of your study plan should be complete here Tuesday night. And that means the biggest tip I can give you is to be confident in the execution of your study plan. Be confident in yourself. And as I always say, be confident in your answers on Friday. You study on max gain for max loss for straddles and spreads. Any tips or tricks? Yes. If you buy options, that is your max loss, right? So if you buy a straddle, let's say it's a Apple 250 call, and I buy an Apple 250 put. And let's pay, I say, 7 points for each of those, right? So I'm out 14, and that is my loss. If I buy a spread, a debit spread, my max loss is the debit. So I think max losses on all option strategies, including advanced option strategies, is pretty easy. It's what you pay. Now, the flip of that, Ashley, another common thread, is that if we sell the option strategy, I sell a 250 call, I sell a 250 put for 7 each, 14, that's my gain, whatever you've collected. You agree to be a potential victim, nobody victimizes you, and you keep the money, right? So now let's talk about the max gain in a long straddle. You make money, you're buying volatility, and you make money when it goes outside of your break evens. Your break even is 264, 236. And so you have unlimited gain in a long straddle, right? We said your max loss is the 14. It would be the opposite for a short straddle. If it was a short straddle, you'd still have the same break evens, but you'd want it in between there. And we have a great memory aid device for that, and it's called Silo. Short inside, long outside. If you're short the straddle, you're selling the volatility. You want it to stay within that trading range, right? And so your max gain is the premiums collected, and then test question, max loss is unlimited. So spreads, max gain and max loss. I told you we have two types of spreads: debit spreads, where you're buying the spread, and we have credit spreads, where you're selling the spread, right? So spread is the difference. So, I'm smart enough to say to my broker, Brian, hey, Brian, I know that if I sell a call naked, it's got unlimited risk. And so I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to just make sure I have that covered by buying the option. Brian here just put up a debit call spread. We paid more for the 60 than we brought in for the 70. And that's kind of cool, Ashley, that we lowered our out-of-pocket cost from 5 to 3. Now, I do have a tip or trick here. The gain and the loss in a spread always equals the difference in the strikes. There's only 10 points to be made or lost here. All of the action takes place between there. I call it the floor 60 and the ceiling 70. So of those two numbers that add up to 10, test taking trick or tip, we have one of them right out of the gate when we net the premium, right? When we net that premium, we have paid out 3. And so 3 plus something equals 10. That something would be 7. Now, the reason I like that trick, Ashley, is because, oh my God, if you don't get that trick that Brian put on the whiteboard, then you got to memorize that the maximum gain in a debit spread is the difference in the strikes less than that debit. Ugh.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I think it's easier to look at the spread and go, hey, okay, whatever it is, it's 10. I either have the gain or the loss, right? If it was a credit spread, my gain would be the credit and the balance would be my loss. So I hope that's helpful. Series 7, advanced option strategies are there. There's 4 test questions about a straddle. Can you identify it? Can you calculate the break evens? Can you determine where it's profitable? When do you use it? On the spread, there's 8 potential questions. Can you identify the spread? Can you determine debit or credit, exercise or expire, widen or narrow? By the way, that's easy because debit, exercise, widen goes together. Credit, expire, narrow goes together, right? Max gain, max loss, break even. We have, again, memory aid device, cal and push, call add to the lower, push, put, subtract from the higher. And then the last thing you're held accountable for on a spread is to know whether it's bullish or bearish, right? So it's there though. I mean, I know, Brian, could we say, and I'm willing to say that I could be wrong. Are we willing to say that if you miss every question on advanced options, you had bigger problems elsewhere if you didn't pass or not?
I don't want to say that.
Okay. I don't either.
It could be the difference between a 60.
I'm glad you're here with us this evening, and I'm glad you're trying to put this into the intellectual ownership category, because we want you to get those points.
Ashley, you got to watch the Guru's videos or my videos where we illustrate and we write these things out. We give you all the tricks and gimmicks. I don't know if you've watched any of our videos, but you got to watch somebody actually work these out rather than reading those stupid things in the textbook. As Dean says, like the maximum loss is the difference between the strike price.
So, Ashley, I have two recommendations for videos for you. The two recommendations I have for you: don't hate the 8. Don't hate the 8. The 8 being the 8 test questions on spreads, where I do exactly that. And then the other one I would recommend to you is score 4 more. Score 4 more. If you go in the channel search bar and put "don't hate the 8" or "score 4 more," score 4 more is where I do that with a straddle. I go over those questions. By the way, I have an options playlist, and I have an entire video on advanced option strategies. Brian's point, I have tutoring replays where you can watch me tutor. Sometimes when people pay for tutoring, they're kind enough to let me put it on the channel, and you watch me and a student go through it, whatever you'd like to do.
Dean, since we're old guys, can I give a very, very quick kind of secret to these? Sure. Options is what made Dean and myself famous. Series 7, options lessons. He does it a little differently. I do it a little differently, but we're both very, very good at it. You've got to watch those videos, and you will become an options expert for Series 7.
By the way, our students actually do very well. Now, I would tell you that Brian and I do believe that we like tips and tricks, but we do believe that if you understand them, boy, you're going to dream. So give me 125 option questions.
Exactly.
If you are good at contract specifications, you can track money, or use a T or pluses or minuses, you're going to get 100. Now, we have some of our peers, as much as I love Esposito has a different method. And, Esposito in his classes says, Brian, hey, if you just want to pass the test, use my method. And then, Ken Finnan has copied Esposito's method, and they do it differently. But what I find funny, Brian, is that when anybody finds an option question where that method doesn't work, because our method works on all questions of all kinds, and the T and tracking the money, they say, don't worry about it. You're not going to see that one. Man, that's a little cavalier. I'm not so sure I would. It's kind of like my last comment, Ashley. I'm not so sure I'd be willing to say that. Taking my test tomorrow. All right. Well, we're sending you positive vibes, man. Go down there and be confident in your answers tomorrow. I love it. Good luck, Montana. Did I miss Montana? Is Montana testing? Was that somebody? I got Mad Marlowe. I don't remember Montana. I've scheduled to take the 65 on April 8th. This will be the 3rd time. Oh, my goodness. You're going to get the dragon this time. Went through STC, Kaplan, Brian's course. What should I do to April 8th? Because I feel ready, but suck at tests. Well, I would like more information. I know people get tired of me saying, I want more data. I'd like to know, what was your last practice test score? Where are you at in your current study effort? I'm shying away a little bit from Brian saying rinse and repeat, because we don't know what you did to rinse and repeat on, right? But I would like some practice test scores. I would be worried about you burning out. I believe in positive self-talk, Jamie. So I don't like stinking thinking where you say, I really suck at tests. That's not the right attitude. So Jamie, starting tonight and tomorrow morning and every night and morning between now and April 8th, I want you to get rid of that stinking thinking. We're going to do an exorcism. And here's how you're going to do the exorcism. You're going to go into your bathroom. You're going to look in the mirror. And you're going to say, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the greatest 65 test taker of them all? Jamie, 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 hoorah! And then when you wake up in the morning, I don't care if you got family, wake them up. Wake up the neighborhood. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the greatest 65 test taker of them all? Jamie, 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 hoorah! Jimmy, on April 8th, before you go into the Prometric site, go to the bathroom. The bathroom is really usually right outside the door, and do it again. When you get to about question 60, halfway, 65, go do it again. So, we got to get that self-talk going the right way. By the way, Jamie, by the time you get done with this process, you're going to be a good test taker, right? Because you've taken the test a lot of times. One of my best brokers, Jamie, used to go out to clients and say, listen, everybody knows this stuff. It's me. I had to take this damn test 3 times. So this is a barrier to entry. It's a rite of passage, and nobody's going to care once you pass the test, right? People invest with you because they like you and trust you, not because you can pay to pass a 65. Hi, Brian. It's a tough experience cookie from St. Louis. I don't know. I'm a little worried about this. I need to call Stacy and say there's some cookie you're talking to. I've been in the business for 10 years and only 1 BD. Okay, well, cool. Thanks, guys. On Series 9 fails, I seem to be struggling with more options scenario questions. Okay, not the supervision. Surprising, by the way. That's why I asked that, Martin. So you know what I would do to remediate? I have in my playlist, in the options playlist, the first 4 videos might be a nice base for you to get back into that options kind of mindset. The first video is introduction to options. The second video is basic option strategies. The third video is advanced option strategies. I forget what the fourth video is, but those first 4, I think, would lay a good base to help you tackle the T, right? So check those out. I have a weekly Q&A jam session, and you're welcome to join us there. And if you show up, just remind me you're the Series 9, and I'll be more than happy to show you how to use a T. Pick out a question. You might want to go, here's a good one for Series 9, for example. I just did a video explication on a ratio right. And I think it's a good example of using the T to answer that. It was a guy who bought 100 shares and wrote 3 calls. The main question would be, does he understand it has unlimited risk? But I, showed you how to use the T. So check that one out. I think I put it up last week. Take my second 65 next Friday. That 65 just gets people, doesn't it? What do you think is good sample size for practice exams? Well, there we go. Easy, 130 questions, right? A practice exam that has the same number of performance opportunities as the actual test. But remember, we're not doing practice exams to get good understanding. No. So I don't like that. That's not why we're doing practice exams. We're doing practice exams as an intellectual inventory to identify areas that need remediation. So I don't like that you're saying, how many practice exams do I do to get a good understanding? No. How much remediation from practice exams should you be doing to get a good understanding? That depends on the people. But next Friday, you don't have a lot of time, my friend. So, I don't know what to tell you about this. I wish people came to us a little earlier. Listen, join us every Tuesday throughout your study, the execution of your study plan. Because what's hard here is you really only have tomorrow because you got to be rested. So Thursday, you basically can work your ass off tomorrow. And I don't think you should do more than 1 a day. So that means max, you're going to pump out 2 more of these. And, you need to do as much time on the remediation. So I think maybe 1 you could do, but you're not doing them for understanding. So I'm a little, I don't know. I'm struggling with this one, Brian. What do you think about this one?
Yeah. By this coming Friday or the following Friday?
Oh, following Friday. And then now we got some. Do you mean next Friday, like this Friday, or you need Friday after next? That's a huge difference.
Take the practice files, like Dean said, to take inventory, especially inventory of your weak areas, and then use the videos and short quizzes to remediate those areas and just repeat. So how many does it take to get through that? I don't know. You're taking a practice final every other day. So if it's a week from Friday.
I usually ask for commitment, Brian, when I'm working with students 7-10 days out. How many are you going to do? I don't care if it's 3 or it's 6, whatever it is. Exactly. I just like to get a commitment. We're not doing more than 1 a day. We're going to remediate. And, then we plan out, okay, what days we're doing it. And then we have one final opportunity to do that intellectual inventory. And usually that's the day before. That would be Wednesday. So if I were working with you, Ronis or Ronnie, I'm not sure, I would be saying we should be doing our last inventory tomorrow. So we have time to remediate on Thursday and Wednesday, and then we go. I'm taking the 66 on Thursday. Wow, I tell you, all these people are asking us for tips where it's kind of too late. Well, again, that means, any tip I would give you is going to be the type of anecdotal kind of placebo tip, like be confident in the execution of your study plan because it's over. Be confident in yourself. Be confident in your answers on Thursday. Make sure you get a good night's rest. Tomorrow should be low key, but you should be going with what you got right now. You just got to firm up what you got. You can't be learning anything new stuff tomorrow, right? I'm new to all this. What's the best book to start with? Well, the best book to start with is your license exam manual, right? So whoever your test prep vendor is, read that book. That's the best book to start with. After you get done with that, then there's other books that you can read. I have some suggestions, but read your manual first. Any tips? I think now it's repeating again. We used to have it. We had a problem last week.
We did that last week, yeah.
Getting a holistic view of the content is a great place to start. I like that.
I do too.
And reading of the book is a great way to do that. Ryan, oh man, spot on, man.
We did not pay him to do that.
No, that's exactly right.
Exactly.
I even like the holistic part. Oh, wow. I love it.
Yeah.
Ryan, I just want to comment on that. I love this comment from Ryan. But what I think is neat when he says holistic, here's what I'm going to, riff on that, is how many people, Brian, don't do it holistically, and they're trying to do questions. They haven't read the book, and so they get frustrated because they haven't laid enough base to read the book to even know what they're being asked and know what answers are being offered to them. So I like that. I like that comment.
And to Ryan's comment, especially when it comes to the NASA exam, 63, 65, 66, if you haven't reviewed their content outline first, I mean, that's telling you exactly what's going to be on the test. And then the textbooks and our videos are going to fill in all of those spaces in between the content. So the holistic view can start with that content outline.
I love it, Brian. Ryan, sometimes when I'm teaching, somebody will say, well, how do you know that's not on the test? I go, well, they're not randomly allowed to just make up things to test you on. They have to ask you things that are found in the context of the content outline or NASAA's test specifications. So Brian's right. That's another way to get that overview of what the entire test is about, the holistic approach, as you said, Ryan. So if I were a test taker, I would always have, if I'm studying SIE or 7, the content outline published by FINRA in my immediate neighborhood on my desk to look at and check and see, what is the testable content here. I have explicated all of these on outlines in video format where you can watch me go through them and tell you what the test issues are. Same for NASA. I would have that test specification next to me for the 65 or 66. Right on. Pass the SIE. Woo! Taking the 7 next week. Love it. Victory bell rings for you. Some Irish whiskey. I haven't had Jameson in years. Have you ever done that, Brian? You haven't had a particular kind of cocktail or something in years, and you go, "Ooh, I remember that. I missed you, my old friend." Well, we should just call this Tuesday Tips and Tricks.
Tuesday's tips, yeah.
Which is the opposite of the holistic. We don't have tips and tricks. If we're trying to become a Buddha in this lifetime, we don't really have tips or tricks to do it. Any tips on taking the 63? Well, yeah. Practice, drill, and rehearse. You have to just make sure you exhaust the Kaplan Q bank, or it looks like you're using the STC Q bank. On that particular exam, you must exhaust the Q bank. Looks like you have two. I'm not a fan of Achievable because of the variance in their practice test scores in the actual exam, but I think STC is fine. So I would exhaust the STC Q bank first, then I would turn to on exhausting the Achievable Q bank. 79 on Brian's test. That's fantastic.
Good.
I think Brian's practice tests have the best correlation to the actual exam. So Jake, a 79 on a Test Geek practice test, I think means you're good to go. Mid-70s, I told you, are acceptable to me on Kaplan. So failed last time with a 69. I don't think, Jake, this time you're going to miss your mark. I think this time you are going to make your mark with those scores, particularly Brian's Test Geek exam. Taking the 63 in 60 days, scoring high 80s, I love it. 14 practice exams, I love it. I bought Brian's 63 class. It's awesome. Any tips for the next 6 days? Do what you're doing, rinse and repeat. I think it looks like everything's go. You're in flight. You just got to stick the landing. So I told you 63, make sure you exhaust that past perfect Q bank. Same recommendation. 63, you must exhaust the Q banks. That Uniform Securities Act and registration stuff is got so you just got to keep doing it until you get the handle on it. Only for 63 am I saying that. So exhaust the Q bank. Save Brian's 63 practice test as your last intellectual inventory. So exhaust that past perfect Q bank. And let's see, does it tell us when you're testing 6 days? So T plus 4, right? 2 days before your test date. So let's say you're testing Friday. Take Brian's practice test on Wednesday. And that should give you a very good correlation or score. The other thing I recommend Alex doing with Brian's practice test, this is for all the exams, is the other thing I like about Brian's practice tests is I tell people to print that PDF and then I'll marco out the wrong answers. And just as the last thing on your 63, the morning of, just read Brian's practice test questions and right answers. Don't even look at the wrong answers. They'll marco those out. And just read his questions and right answers. I think that's a good way to get some flow. It's hard to get flow on particularly the 63. And so that's how I would kind of get some flow. So your brain's going, okay, go time. You on 63 NASAA exams particularly, you can miss questions because you're just not in a flow state, right? You're warming up. I had a guy, Brian, and I'm not a new age kind of a person, but my goodness, he would climb back in, but he would have like 15 red dots in the first 20 questions. And I said, will you do me a favor? Just before you start, let's just set the intention that we're not going to go off the rails on the front end of the exam. Because then, you're in the hole and you're climbing out. So, that would be my other recommendation. Anyways, I don't think he would have done that, Brian, if he just read your questions and answers to kind of just get his brain kind of going.
Dean, I have to interrupt you here. We have some activity out in the neighborhood.
You're taking off?
I got to take off.
No worries. Everything's safe. You're all right.
I'm getting tips from my neighbors, and so I got.
Okay, no worries. So, thank you for joining us, Brian. As always, I'm going to go ahead and finish up. Do you want to give us a word before you go, or text me a word? Text me a word, and I'll do it that way. Right. So text me, and then when I do the drawing, we'll put your word up there, and we'll.
Perfect. I'll do that. Okay. Yep.
All right.
Thanks,
Sorry
guys.
for running over.
Everybody. Thank you.
Brian has a life outside of being the test geek. I don't. My entire life is being the guru. Thanks, Brian. All right, so I'll finish up. I'll go with you as long as you want to go, guys. So I'll answer any questions we can. Let's see. I think we answered that. Taking the 63. If I fail the 66 again, yeah, I like that as a plan B, Jake. I wish Vince would come back. Vince, where are you? Vince is one of my favorite students over the past 12, 18 months. And here's why he's one of my favorites. Him and I worked really hard together on the 66, and very rarely am I surprised. And I was really surprised at 66 as a plan B, not a plan A, plan B. I said, listen, I know you well enough in terms of what you know that I think you could pass out of the 63, tomorrow. And this is Tuesday. Why don't we, Friday, go take a 63? I think you can make your mark on that. He did. And I said, and why don't we go to the 65 instead of waiting 30 days? And he did, and he's back in business. I also had this come up, and this was kind of surprising to me. I couldn't convince Edward Jones that the 63, 65 is the same as the 66. And they were telling this baby broker that, that wasn't a plan B that could work at Edward Jones. I go, this is ridiculous. Now, good news, he's kind of connected at Edward Jones. He has a relative that's kind of a mucky muck there. And, I told, this person that, listen, I don't know why, Edward Jones, good firm, by the way, reputable firm. I mean, I have no issues with him. I don't know why compliance won't let him do this. So I don't know where you're at on the food chain at Edward Jones. Are you a partner? I don't know, but If you have the juice, can you kibosh them and let them take the damn 63, 65? By the way, and he did, and he passed, and he's back in business. So I do like that as a plan B. Not a plan A, but a good plan B. I have 3 weeks. What do you recommend using to study? Kaplan, of course, Ryan. So, Kaplan, you get a 15% discount at checkout with Guru 15. You get a book. You get, I think, the best Q bank in the business. You get access to my office hours. So Kaplan all the way. Kaplan all the way. Any tips on taking the 63? I think that's a repeat. I think we talked about that, right? I think we just answered. I use a software vendor who does these for me, and I think sometimes it is picking up, from Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube, and I think we get repeat questions. Areas to focus on 66. Yeah, well, on the registration side, I wouldn't spend any time on options. I mean, they're there, but the options are pretty straightforward. And remember, you got futures, and you need to know the difference between futures and forwards, and it's a beauty contest question. Why are futures better than forwards? That's the end of that part of derivatives. So that's not called options on 66. It's called derivatives. And the SPAC is pretty easy. A special purpose acquisition corporation, the test question of the public offering price is 10. And if we don't make an acquisition in 2 years, we have to refund it. And SPACs don't have the disclosure requirements that would be if we were operating a business. So that's the question on SPACs. So I knocked that out. Now, in terms of registrations of persons, I'm not going to call it identification. It's registration. How do we register investment advisors? If not, why not? How do we register investment advisor reps? If not, why not? That is 7 or 8 of the registration questions. The registration of broker-dealer questions are pretty straightforward. No office, no retail, no register. So BDs are pretty simple on the registration front. The IAs is either going to be federally covered or state, and it's kind of a can of worms if it's state. And then what follows from that on the investment advisor rep. So you almost have to read it once just to say, okay, am I being asked about an investment advisor or a broker-dealer? Oh, it's an investment advisor. Is it state or is it federal? Oh, it's about an investment advisor rep. Are they federal or are they state? So NASAA exams are giant reading exams. I failed with 91 questions. I'm not sure what exam you're talking about, Beat. Wish me luck. I'm going to wish you luck. I'd like to know what exam that is. Was it a 7? 91 questions correct, I would guess. Retaking the SIE, last attempt exam, using Opman. I think you should get it. Usually if you get over 60, it's not a knowledge deficit problem. It's answers or something like that. So just passed the SIE onto the 65. I have until June, but I also have college. The 65 is much, much more difficult than the SIE. So if you're going to have until June to take the 65, I would power up 6-8 weeks out. I would stay focused on college, and about 6 to 8 weeks start powering up on that 65. But it's much, much more difficult than the SIE. Pour a shot for you. Well, I still have some here, Caleb. Oh, I'm liking that, James. I love Ireland, and only in Ireland, right? I'm in Cove Harbor, and I took a bus around the harbor to the other side, and this is in Cork County, and I'm having a pint, and I'm there about 4:30, 5 o'clock, and the guy comes in, he goes, "Will you stand me a pint?" I go, "Absolutely, I'll stand you a pint." I'm like, "Well, that's kind of weird. I mean, I haven't had somebody like get in my space like that." And anyways, we have our pint. He said, "Well, you're ready to go." I said, "Ready to go? What do you mean?" He goes, "I'm your bus driver, and this is the last bus going back." And so I thought I'd pick you up. I thought, well, only in Ireland would the bus driver park the bus, come have a pint with you, and then give you right back to the hotel, right? And I was flying Aer Lingus. That's the Irish flag carrier. And, even if you're flying out, they're just so hospitable. "Oh, Mr. Tinney, your flight is leaving." It's like nice people. Currently averaging 70%, 76. By the way, we always welcome victorious test takers, Caleb. It's always good for morale. I don't know why you wouldn't want to take my word for what's on your exam, but I love victorious test takers who come back and tell us where they're up to, right? And it looks like you're almost through your testing journey. right? You know, you're on the last leg of your testing journey. And I wish you bon chance, good luck. But Caleb, you know, one of the things that happens, it's a little melancholy, but, you know, I come into your life for a reason and a season. The reason is to pass your exams, and the season is how long it takes us to do that. And sometimes, Caleb, people will show up and say, Dean, the reason and the season is over, and I'm unsubscribing. I'm getting on with my life. I go, I get it. But then we also have some people say, hey, Dean, even though the reason of the season is over, I'm still going to pop in on Tuesdays. Maybe I'll keep subscribing to the channel. And I say, oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I just got the text from Brian for our word for the coaching call. I'm currently averaging 70% on my exam, 76, struggle first couple units, need to review those. Yeah, just keep working. Stay the course, Caleb. Stay the course. Remember, you are a victorious test taker. You already have 2 victories under your belt, and so you should be able to get this third one, right? I've answered this question. I think it's repeating, but remember, exhaust the Q bank. Looks like we're almost ready for our Wheel of Fortune, our drawing. Hi, Dean Brian, retaking the SIE. Last attempt was 68. Scored 84 on my benchmark today. Wow, you're looking great, Elizabeth. That's fantastic. 61 on the FINRA practice. That is weird. That is really, really weird. So I don't know what to say about that. I'm worried about that 61. When are you taking? Let's see. I'm using Knopfman. When are you testing, my friend? When are you testing, Elizabeth? I mean, I like the 84. The 61. Go to my channel, by the way. So go to my channel, and I have an entire playlist of practice tests from STC, from Kaplan, from TestGeek. Do one of those and see what you score. And let's see if it confirms the FINRA or it confirms Knopfman. So do that. Send me, put in the comment section when you do it, what your score was, and I'll check it out and see if we need to help you. I feel good, but yeah, you know, when the variance is worrying, and the easy way to get rid of the variance is to do it again. Every once in a while that happens. Somebody gets a bad score, and we say, well, just keep working. If you failed 3 times, can you still take the 7? Yeah, you just have to wait 6 months. So the answer is yes, you got to wait 6 months. Starting my career as a mortgage trader, whole loan trader, secondary market buy side, would you recommend in terms of licensing, as none is required? But I would suggest you take your SIE. You have to be sponsored, but maybe get the 57. 57 is a trader of securities stocks. Yep, I answered that. Looks like we're time for a drawing. You're welcome, Morgan. Woo! Second attempt. So you passed 2 tests. You passed your 65 and you passed a test of resiliency. Passing that test of resiliency is actually a leading indicator you're going to do well in our field, even more so than passing your 65. Option put quadrant. Yeah, the matrix, I call it. That helps a lot. Where do we find Brian's videos? At Brian sells a paid supplement. He has a YouTube channel, but it's at TestGeek at teachable.com. So you put TestGeek in the chat. There's also a link, by the way, on my channel. If you go to the description of my YouTube channel, you'll find a link to Brian. You're being asked what was helpful, Morgan. Am I allowed to ask that? Yes, you are. He's not allowed to tell you question 35 was, but he can say, here's things I wish I would have been better prepared for. But be careful. Every draw is different. I'm wishing for you a dream draw. Everything you studied shows up. But we got to be able to take a face of death draw. And when people pass or fail the second time, let's say Morgan would have failed the second time. A lot of times what happens is people are trying to study for their last draw, and then they get a different draw, and then they fail again. So you've got to make sure that if you are retesting, that you are studying the entire content, not just the areas you're weak on. You certainly want to bring those up, but you want to be prepared to take down any draw. Now, be careful. And that's why I don't think it's productive to ask people about their draws, because your draw could be substantially different. And you don't want to be studying somebody else's draw. You want to understand and intellectually own these concepts. Next Friday is next week. Okay, well, good. That's great, Firefish. That's fantastic. So that means you have time to kind of remediate. Love that. Beverly Hills, Series 7. All right, I think it's time for our drawing here. Let's see if I got any more here. I'm going quick because I want to get to the drawing. Between STC, I recommend Kaplan, but I'm a official Kaplan social media influencer guy. So no surprise that I would recommend to you Kaplan. And remember, the 15% discount code is Guru15 at checkout. The reason I like Kaplan, and by the way, I've done well in the securities industry, so I don't need to be compensated. I have enough money working for me that I don't need to work for my money anymore. But the reason I think Kaplan is better than STC is because of the QBank. Kaplan has a lot more depth to their QBank, a lot more that you can custom, a lot more performance opportunities. And so that's why I think I give the recommendation to Kaplan. What's the turnaround time? 30 days, man. 30 days. Get back on that horse. There you go for nostalgia. There you go. Pass the SIE. Love it. 8 to 5 through Friday, 4 weeks. Strictly your podcast. Well, I don't recommend it, but I do have enough content to pass this SIE. Not recommended. It's a supplement, but there is enough content to pass that. I wouldn't do that again for the 7, right? Practice test. Any tips for the next 4 weeks? Well, we earlier had gone over a study plan, and if you put study plan in the channel search bar, we have recommendations on that. How do I get a Kaplan QBank without purchasing the book of materials? Well, you just go to study materials, study tools. There's a tab, Georgia, that has the QBank, securities QBank, and you just hit that, right? And it'll come up, and then again, you can get that discount, right? So you can buy the QBank. By the way, that's the other reason I think Kaplan, somebody asked, SEC doesn't sell their QBank separately. They sell additional exams, but not their QBank. Kaplan is the only test prep vendor that will let you buy the QBank. Yeah, I mean, ideally, it's not as necessary on the 63, but yeah, I think, again, it's a buffet. I always try and exhaust any QBank I have for any test I'm taking. And that means particularly 10s and 24s, things like that, because you want to be able to see everything. Yeah. All right. So now I'm going to put the Wheel of Fortune up there if you want to participate. What stuff is, well, I don't think you need to memorize it. We're not tax experts. We'd have to have a general understanding how taxes are an impediment to investment success, and enough understanding that his account doesn't tell him he needs a new broker. So, it's not too big a deal, but, I have a video called Death and Taxes. No, just taxes. Check that out. Finished 90% of the QBank. Love it. Love it. Love it. Yeah, I'm with you. They just got to keep grinding. Keep grinding. Any tips? Yeah, keep grinding. Stay the course. Stay the course. What's your best advice? Well, review economics. That's the major difference. It's the same content, but 65 has more economics. So review economics. Other than that, it's the same exam. Passed the 2 weeks ago, booking the 63. Love it. 63 weeks. Just again, rifle through it. Answer his last question. Yeah, I've gotten me through my last test. I love it. Pass the SIE, studying for 65. You're a legend. Well, I don't know about that. Okay, so now I'm going to go get the Wheel of Fortune. Let me go get the Wheel of Fortune. I'm joking. It's called the giveaway tool. And if you want to participate in our drawing for the coaching call, I need you to put into the chat exactly what you're going to see on the screen here in a moment. And so let me now go get that. And shared screen. Shared screen. Boom, boom, boom. So if you want to participate in the drawing, put spring into the chat. It doesn't matter if you put it in 4 times, add the exclamation point. It'll pick up once. So put that into the chat if you would like to participate in the drawing. If you win the drawing, remember the way you claim your coaching call is you go to deantenneytutoring.setmore.com, and that will show you how you get that. All right, only 6 participants so far. We have 40 people right now on the call and the coach on our thing right now. 9, 11. Anybody else? Remember, deantenneytutoring.setmore.com is also where you can find our Q&A jam session. I think we're doing one Friday. That's for anybody who wants to attend. That too can be found in the class tab. You can find the tab for our book club meeting. That's March 26th, and you find the tab there. I haven't put up the tab for the office hour yet because I just did one yesterday. So I'll put that tab up. So check back. And if you're interested in that coaching call. All right, let's do our drawing. Let's see who the winner is. All right, so Robert, go to deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. Go to the coaching call tab, and I'll show up. It'll send you a Zoom link, and I will show up, and we'll talk about anything you want to talk about. Your exam, practice questions, whatever you want to do. All right, everybody. Well, remember, inch by inch, your exam is a cinch. Yard by yard, your exam is hard. As Brian, my friend, says, make sure you take the test. Don't let the test take you. That's particularly important if you're testing Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this week. Make sure you take this test. This test does not take you. You got to be confident in yourself, and you got to be confident in your answers. We'll see you next Tuesday. Same bat time, same bat channel.